Good morning, Colts Nation. Welcome back to another episode of the No Horsing Around podcast, brought to you exclusively by the Lounge Room Network. As always, we're just two dudes talking Colts. We are your hosts, Steven and Zach. And today's episode is really cool, you guys. So we are joined by my boy, Vinny. You guys hear me talk about him all the time. He is the No Horsing Around super fan, man. He has been day one. He has interacted. He has participated in Twitter questions pretty much every week, kicks himself when he doesn't get it in. And with the off season, we wanted to take a chance and we wanted to have Vinny on. So Vinny, man, welcome to No Horsing Around.
Yeah, man, I think thanks a lot. I appreciate you guys having me on today, and I'm pumped to get it going.
Yeah, I mean, we're really excited, man. I mean, as always, with what we always say is, please rate, review, subscribe, share, follow, whatever it is you do on whatever platform it is you do it on, please go do it. Hit the 5-star, have fun with it, write a quick review. Check out the YouTube channel. We got some really cool things brewing over there. Got a pretty cool little hand in there trying to help us make our videos look a little bit sweeter. Kind of excited about that. Me and Zach have been playing with that. So we don't hesitate, man. We always jump right in. So Vinny, man, I've got to ask kind of off the bat, for those who don't know, Vinny is our super Canadian fan. And I am so curious on what that is like. First of all, how did you become a Colts fan, man?
So I started off by becoming a Colts fan. I'm not going to lie. I was born in Flint, Michigan. So there was a little bit of Detroit going through my blood there with my family. And after moving to Canada in '98, I just started watching the Colts a little bit more as I got more into football. And then the Peyton Manning era just kind of turned me into a straight Colts fan. I've just been a number one Colts fan ever since.
Love it, man. And so for you guys that know too, we're going to have a little bit of fun today. There's not a lot of topics. We're going to do a kind of get to know the dudes, man. The dudes behind No Horsing. And so I'm actually outside of the Canadian thing, because we all know Zach doesn't live in Canada, is I'm going to kind of pass it over to Zach now and kind of, hey, tell people, how did you become a Colts fan, man? Like, we never really covered this when we first started the podcast.
Yeah, man. So that's a great question. I can specifically remember the day that I became a Colts fan. I was in the back room of my grandparents' house, actually. I was very, very young, man. Like, I was 7 years old, and the Indianapolis Colts were playing the Houston Oilers on Monday Night Football against Warren Moon. And we beat the Houston Oilers 56-3 in that very first game that I ever watched us play, man. And I thought, I got to be a Colts fan, right? Like this is just meant to be. And ever since, man, even at a young age, I've just been drawn to the horseshoe. I always have, even through the bad years. I'm almost 40 years old, and anybody who's been a Colts fan as long as I have will also understand pre-Peyton Manning, we were not a good football team. we did not win a lot of football games. And it was we were kind of the doormat of the league there for a while. And, to be honest, the reason that we got Peyton Manning is because we sucked the year before. So, it just happened that way. But, yeah, I've loved them ever since. And just through the years, all the great storylines, started kind of with my middle school years, captain comeback, and then you go into the Peyton Manning era. Still pissed off to this day that Cordell Stewart stepped out of bounds and stepped back into bounds. In
that was
that
a catch, man.
Hey, bro, I'm telling you right now, hey, if I told true story, this is off the record since we're having kind of a, off the record.
It's off the record.
Hey, true story. I was in Louisville when I was 22 years old at my friend's bachelor party. And guess who was there? Cordell Stewart. And I told him, I didn't even go up and I didn't fanboy him. I didn't shake his hand. I said, dude, you stepped out of bounds, man. That's all. That's all.
No, you didn't, Zach. No, you didn't, man. That
is the true story, by the way.
Oh my God. See, that trumps any story I have. Obviously, for those who've listened long enough, I've kind of touched on how I've been a Colts fan. I lived in Indiana when I was little, and that was the team, man. There was no team really, unless you wanted to root for the Falcons, which was way further south than what I lived. There wasn't a team to root for, and so you kind of fell in with that. I fell in love. I remember being 6 years old. and my brother's got a Michael Jordan. Everyone knows that Michael Jordan poster, you know, with the hands outstretched. He's got that outstretched, right? And that's his thing. And over my bed is a Marshall Faulk poster. That guy was my dude. He is my man. I love him. I loved him so much. I almost became a Rams fan when they traded him. I was that upset, but I didn't. I hung with it, you know, and through the years, obviously living in Tennessee, when I first moved to Tennessee, there were no Titans. And I wasn't going to like the Titans. I thought the name was stupid. I didn't really want to root for them. And so, you know, that's my team, man. I mean, I can remember, you know, we'll get into it kind of like lasting memories, but dude, there's just, as a Colts fan, you're right, man. There, you go through these ebbs and flows, and it's hard to remember a time really when we didn't have games. A lot of like, I mean, like we may complain about our primetime games, but there were like no games. Like you're talking like blacking out the games. There was none of them. And you could not find a way to watch the Colts on TV. And then living in Tennessee, the hard part for me, obviously, is, you know, the Colts play at noon and the Titans play at noon. I got to find a way to watch the game. And so, I mean, that's how I became a Colts fan. I think everybody has their own story, how you latch on it. I mean, me and you, Zach, we've talked off air too. It's so different nowadays too. Like you latch to the team, like Vinny, like you latch to the team. You might have a player, but if that player leaves, man, you bleed blue. Like you are a Colts fan. It doesn't matter if it's Andrew Luck, Peyton Manning, or Jacoby Brissett. And Zach can attest because you see me on camera. I still rock the Jacoby shirt, you know, even though he's in Miami. Zach does not like it. And look at him. He looks so disappointed, man. But we got through the old ones, and now I've got my Quentin Nelson King of the Hogs going on. But, you know, so everyone has that story. So let me ask you this, man, Vinny. You know, we know how you became a Colts fan. How tough is it? The other part I'm curious of is how tough is it to actually watch a game, to be able to kind of, it's not a primetime game, maybe.
It's a challenge. It's definitely a challenge because up my way in Northern Ontario, we get a lot of Buffalo Bills just because we're so close to Toronto, Buffalo, New York. So we get a lot of aired Buffalo games and a lot of Patriots games for some odd reason, which I kind of dislike, obviously. So the way I have to watch the Indianapolis Colts is through DAZN. So I'm all over DAZN. I even sneak it in at work when I'm at work when I shouldn't be. But like I said, I can't miss a Colts game, whether it's at work or not. So that's primarily how I have to watch it. I sometimes, if they get like the primetime game, which is never, except for a Thursday nighter, I get to watch them on Thursday night. But other than that, it's pretty tough. It's a challenge.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough enough. That was something I was so curious about. As me and you have talked over the last 6 months, that it blows my mind. I was looking up, and Zach, me and you've talked about this. I was looking it up, and I was looking at old recordings. I was like, good God, I've been doing it for 6 months at this point. And me and you, Zach, have been doing it for almost 2. So, I mean, it's time flies is the craziest thing. And I always tell people all the time, I always shout out Vinny any chance I can, because I mean, literally when I started the podcast, I think he was the first person to say something and let me know somebody out there was actually listening, which it was so appreciated, and it still is. And obviously that's why Vinny's coming on. So Zach, let me ask you, man, so we've talked about how we became fans. What is kind of outside of you, what's the word I'm looking for? Clowning? Cordell Stewart? What's a memory that just sticks in your head? And let's not go with the easy ones of the Super Bowl. Like I have a great one for that, but like what's a memory that just like it sticks in the head? It's something that you'll never forget that involved the Colts and you watching them.
Man, I mean, yeah, I mean, of course, the Super Bowl and all of the Peyton years, but I still have a sweet spot for the Andrew Luck Superman game. You know what I mean? Like that game in KC was just like,
yeah,
unbelievable. You know what I mean? Like he literally stretched out for the touchdown. Like it was just such a good football game and just such a great time to be a Colts fan. I was reminded in that moment just how cool of a fan base we had. Like we just all came together and just celebrated that win. So that's probably one of my absolute favorite moments as a Colts fan. What about you, Vinny, man? You got one that sticks out to you?
Honestly, mine's a little bit more recent. I can't stop watching till this day the Kenny Moore Odell Beckham interception in the end zone. Every time I watch that, I just don't understand why this guy's still underrated. He's one of the best cornerbacks in the league, and he still gets mad disrespect.
I mean, you're not the only one. We've talked about it so often, and it's kind of crazy. Like I went on Bring the Juice this past week. Cody Felger gave me a call, and he's like, "Hey man, what are you doing?" It's like 10 o'clock at night. I'm like, "Man, Cody, I can't believe you're still awake. You want me to jump on with you?" He's like, "Yeah." And we talked underrated, and the number one position we talked about was still the corners. And it's not that he's not known. It's that he's so underrated. I mean, I have him. I think he's one of the best corners in the league. Let's scrap the whole narrative of
hands down.
He's the slot corner, and he gets pissed off when you hear that. When he hears, "Hey, I'm the best. He's the best slot corner." No, dude, I'm the best corner. Back away. So I mean, that's a great play, dude. I think in the pod that I was running at the time, I think my response was no points for you. So I mean, it's literally how I felt when I saw it. I was just shocked. I'll tell you two fun ones for me is, I mean, obviously, the Super Bowl is the big one. And obviously living in Tennessee, I get to go to a lot of games. I was Peyton Manning's first game as a Colt in Tennessee. I was at Andrew Luck's last regular season game as a Colt in Tennessee. But it's kind of fairly recent because it's just people who listen to listeners, you guys hear me talk about it all the time. 2 years ago for me is one that sticks out for me because it was 107 degrees. It's the hottest game in Nissan Stadium history. And I was at the game, and it was Jacoby's game. And it was the one where Jacoby led the charge down to the end of the game, scored, and then Marcus Mariota pooped the bed. And so the Titans didn't win. But it was just people passing out at the concession stand. There was nothing anybody could do. The most recent one for me, and Zach, you'll get a kick out of this too because you got kids. It was last season, and it was the Jonathan Taylor Jacksonville game when he busted it off at the end. It's in the highlights at the beginning of our show on YouTube, and I'm watching the game. I'm allowed to watch the game as long as I keep myself under control. And I was calm, I was good. And he busted that thing, and I jumped up and yelled so loud, I scared my 10-year-old daughter. She turned to me, she goes, "I'm telling mom." So it was like, oh no, you can't do that. But I mean, it was such a visceral response for me that I didn't expect it. I mean, I jumped halfway across the room and just yelled and started pumping my fists as he kind of ran into the end zone. But it's stuck in that. It's right there. It's stuck. You can't get rid of it. I mean, it's just fun. Like that's part of being the fan. That's part of being a fan of a team is you get these lasting, lifelong memories. I mean, and Zach, I know you've got more than I can imagine too, because I mean, you're a season ticket holder. So you've been to some of these games where these things have happened. And I've never asked you this. Were you at the game when Andrew Luck's retirement sneaked out? Were you at the preseason game?
Actually, I was not there. I was at home, my best friend actually decided to go to that game. I stayed back, and what an unbelievable moment. That was an iconic sports moment, not just an Indianapolis Colts moment, but nothing had ever been broken inside of an actual game. I don't care if it was preseason or not. To see the way the fans in real time reacted to the way Andrew Luck retired right there on the sidelines as he was standing on the sidelines. I mean, I've just never been a part of anything like that, Steve. And I've never seen anything, and I've never just seen it was just, for me, it was just sheer disbelief. When I saw the first tweet, I thought, okay, Adam Schefter just got hacked. You know what I mean? I thought this isn't real, man. This guy was out last week. He was out in the end zone and looked good and looked ready, like he was ready to go. And then all of a sudden, here this guy's getting ready to retire. But no, man, that was that was just you want to talk about the ultimate gut shot. It was just one of those deals. Heartbreaking, really. Yeah. But as we're speaking on memories, one of my favorite memories that I forgot was the Broncos game where Marvin didn't get touched and he got back up and he ran it all the way.
I love that.
God, what a great
it was such a great moment.
It's just what a good cerebral football play. You know what I mean? Like a guy just knowing his awareness on the field and just to get up and just take off and run for that touchdown. That's one of my favorite Marvin memories for sure.
I mean, and that's the best thing too, is like you reach back and you find like these Marvin memories, or you find, the three receivers with 1,000 yards, when no team had ever done that. So, I mean, so for the Colts fans out there really quickly, that means Zach was not one of the people who booed Andrew Luck at that game. Okay. Let's just float that up. But I mean, it was such, I remember having such a, not angry. I think it was just shock. I had left my parents' house. I'd been over there hanging out with them, and my brother texted me. He's like, "Hey, Andrew Luck's retired." I'm like, "Shut up! He's on the field. He's on the sideline. He's not retiring." And then it's like, ding, ding, ding. And I think I can't remember who it was telling me when all this Carson Wentz stuff was breaking, and the rumors were all over the place that he was coming, and nothing was coming from Schefter. Somebody, it may have been Kevin Bowen that I was talking to, and he was like, kind of, yeah, dude, they're not leaking anything to Adam Schefter after what he did, after choosing to break that news in the middle of a game. There's no way. So, I mean, I just love talking memories, because memories, like when they won the Super Bowl, I remember I literally took off outside. I was in college, and I ran up and down the dorm room. I mean, people were kind of looking at me funny because some of them didn't know what's going on. But, so speaking, kind of a nice little easy transition, obviously, is, Vinny, what do you think of Carson Wentz, man? I ask everybody who comes on this show. I'm curious. We just talked about kind of the rumor, and it was a nice little transition to go to. How, we've kind of had our standpoint. Like we feel pretty good. I'm a huge Carson guy. You know it from listening. From the very beginning, I kind of beat that drum. Where do you sit, man? How do you feel like he's going to do? How do you think the season's going to shape up?
I think we just stole our top starting quarterback for peanuts. Like I think we just stole him from the Philadelphia Eagles. I think it was a great move by Chris Ballard and the way they held out to get him. If you look at his numbers back in 2017 with Frank Reich as the offensive coordinator, he was phenomenal. He was in MVP conversations. It was the year that Philadelphia won the Super Bowl. And I know he got hurt at the end there, but his numbers were outstanding. And he actually had 28 sacks that season. And he was ranked fourth in touchdowns with 38 passing. So if anybody can get Carson Wentz back to MVP form, it's Frank Reich. So I love him coming to the Colts. I think he's a great addition. He's definitely more mobile than Phillip Rivers, so that's a bonus. I think it'll keep defenses honest, to be honest, on that. And yeah, I just think he'll work really well with the RPO scheme. And he's kind of familiar with the offense we run anyways, because it was something similar of what Philly ran when Reich was back in Philly. So this is a perfect situation for us, and I think we stole him for sure.
Yeah, I mean, normally I'd toss it to Zach, but we've talked so much about what we think. Zach, do you have anything you want to add on Carson that we've not talked or said
I think
repeatedly?
I'm at the point right now where I'm just ready to see Carson in action, live bullets. We've talked so much, we've speculated. Everybody has their takes. You've got people on one end of the spectrum that is just like, oh my God, what an incredible, prospect. Then you got the haters that say, oh, Carson Wentz is done. And then you got a lot of people who are kind of in between, jury's still out. But I think that Carson is in a perfect situation to thrive and to be a really good quarterback. And if he can't make it in this system, with this team, with this offensive line, this running game, then that's probably his last shot, honestly, in the NFL. I mean, this is a really good chance for him to kind of redeem and have anybody who listens to this podcast, I think one take that we both like in a comparison was Carson Palmer, how he was later in his career. He went and kind of got taken over and kind of renaissance with Bruce Arians, a guy who he kind of had a great marriage. And that just shows you how important it is, offensive coordinator, quarterback. If they're joined at the hip, they think alike, they see the game alike, they can really get the best out of each other. So I think that's probably a very, very good possibility for us. But I'm really at the point where, I'm ready to see it now. Let's see what he's got. Let's see if he can go out there and kind of, take that next step and be a special quarterback. And if he can be a top 10, I don't think he needs to be a top 5, but if he can be a top 10 quarterback for this football team, I think that he can win a Super Bowl. I really do. I think at some point he'll get to the Super Bowl, just being inside that top 10, making the right football play. Seems like he has a great attitude too. I mean, everybody acts like he's almost relieved, by not being in a system where he has to worry about looking over his shoulder. He knows he's a number one guy. He knows he's got big shoes to fill, but hey, I think he's up for the challenge. I'm just interested to see Vinny's take on, the kind of the newest news. We don't really have anything new in the cycle, but what were your instant reactions, Vinny, to Julio going to the Titans?
If that's what they think is going to beat us, they're wrong.
There it is.
Honestly, hey, they're grasping at straws right now. They know what's coming for them this year. They know that we're the team to beat in the AFC South, and I think they're just trying to add as many offensive weapons as they can. And roads are going to be closed this year. I can just see it right now. I can see Rhodes shadowing on an island against Julio Jones. And maybe if there's talks about A.J. Brown going inside the slot, that's even better. That works out better for us. The true test is the opposite corner from Xavier Rhodes, to be honest. I think Marvell Tell has a good shot at making a push for that starting position over Rock Ya-Sin. And I would actually like to see Marvell Tell take that next step. Rock knows that this is his last year. If he doesn't come out and ball out and perform, I think he's going to force Chris Ballard's hand into moving on or looking at other options. But just going back to the Julio Jones thing, I think we're in, you know what? They were a one-dimensional team at first with Derrick Henry. So trying to get Julio in there, like I said, trying to have the offensive weapons to take back over the AFC South. I think they're grasping at straws, and we'll see what happens.
I mean, I'm on the same page. I mean, I kind of want to do the woo, 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 Julio update kind of thing. We talked about it, but we talked about 2 weeks ago. We talked about with Georgia a little last week. And I mean, my update living in Tennessee is that they're all batshit crazy a little bit with it. Is that, we've had I've had numerous conversations, and this is the question that I've posed to the Titans fans. Julio missed some games last year. And I started digging more, and I didn't realize he had not played 16 games, but like 3 times in his career, which kind of surprised me. I didn't view him as injury prone, but we kind of talked about that. And I'm like, if you think that's what's going to get you, I've come out and I've said, and I've had Titans fans tell me they want to reach through the screen and they want to slap me, is that the Julio trade is not what will win them a Super Bowl. I'm not saying they're not capable of it. They are a very talented team. They remind me of the early Peyton Manning years in Tennessee or in Indianapolis, as we're going to hang 35, try to keep up, because their defense is horrible. And that's what I look at. But the question I've posed to them is, you've got 2 unknowns in the AFC South, 2 big unknowns. Julio Jones, can he come back and be the player he was, 2 years ago? And you have Carson. Can Carson come back and be the player he was 2 years ago? If both come back full throttle and they're where they're supposed to be, who's better? It's the Colts, because it's Carson Wentz. It's the quarterback position. There's only so many balls. I think we've talked about it. Julio's only I think the goal's only like 1,000 yards, 1,000 to 1,200 maybe. I mean, they've got A.J. Brown is super talented. And I'll tell you, first person knowledge, I met him one time, and he is a large human being. Just a little stoke the fire. I was at a charity golf tournament and I met him, and I had my Colts stuff on. I had my Colts hat on, and I took a picture with him, and I took the hat off out of respect. It's a charity tournament, but one of my buddies asked him, pointed to me and said, hey, he's a huge Colts fan. He runs a Colts podcast. Hey, Steven, who do you think's going to cover AJ? And AJ looked right at me, and I said Xavier Rhodes, and AJ laughed. And then turned and took the picture. So a little fire there from AJ Brown, laughing about Xavier Rhodes covering him. But I mean, I think being around Zach as much, it's rubbed off on me. But I mean, as far as Tennessee with the way they feel, you would have thought between Bud Dupree and getting Julio that they've won the Super Bowl. I mean, I joke about it on here all the time. Colts Facebook's terrifying. But you go into some of those chats, like I'm foolish enough to go into the AFC South chat and just talk a ton of smack in there. And so I get stuff all the time. I don't get stuff from Texans fans. They've conveniently disappeared, I think Zach has them winning.
Just like their starting quarterback.
Well,
Yeah.
oh, we don't go too much into that really, but
Exactly.
yes. Oh man, I think Zach, don't you have them going 0-17, the first 0-17 team in NFL history?
Yes, they could have a perfect season this year. They absolutely could have a perfect season. And they're clearly trying to tank. And I'll be honest with you, I don't think it's a terrible business model for the Texans. If I'm a Texans fan, you hate to hear it because you always want to win, but what better chance to have a quick rebound, a quick turnaround, especially after you potentially might not have your quarterback who you thought you had for the next 10 or 12 years, right? Like you thought you had your guy, the guy who could lead you there, but go out, tank, just get the number 1 pick, just draft a quarterback, move on, and hopefully find some way to kind of spin this, turn this, get max, a max return from Deshaun Watson. I don't know at this point. There's no leverage, so I don't know what you really get from a guy like a Deshaun Watson. I don't know what you get from keeping him. It's just a terrible position as a franchise to be in. But we'll just see. I mean, they're going to be really, really bad. I think I've been beating this drum a little bit, but I think the Colts at some point, whether it be now, early in the off season or later in the off season, or even all the way up to, cap casualties at the end of the preseason, I think you'll see a veteran cornerback join this team. I don't know that he starts. I don't know what he does, but I think you'll see a veteran presence start out there because I just don't think that as it goes, I think that Ballard would like a little bit more of a veteran voice out there on that back end just to kind of, solidify his cornerback room. He's got Kenny Moore. He's got Xavier Rhodes, just like Benny had mentioned earlier, all roads are closed. But, I don't like the thought of in the middle of a big game, a division rival game, a guy like a Marvell Taylor or TJ Carey getting hurt, and then 26 comes out there, man. Because if I'm a quarterback,
come on.
If I'm a quarterback, I'm just gonna throw it up towards Rocky Alcine and just hope he grabs a hold of something. You know what I mean?
I will say,
Yeah.
your best friend George Brimmer somewhat agreed with me last week that he could possibly have a decent year, that he shows promise. He wouldn't go far enough to say he'll play.
Benny, would you mind telling this man this is wishful thinking?
It's you know what, I do have to say something to that point though. That Green Bay game when he picked off Aaron Rodgers, he does show flashes here and there. He's got to get that wrestling mentality out of his head. He's got to stay away from the grabbing. He seems like a disciplined, very tough guy, but like I said before, this is a big year for him. He needs to come out and perform, and he knows that. Nobody else knows this is a bigger year for Rock than Rock himself. So if it's this year, he's got to get it done. But like I said, 2019, before Marvell Tell opted out, he was playing from week 7 to 11. He was playing a good majority of the defensive snaps, and he was showing a lot of promise there at that position. So I'd like to see him get a little bit more reps, even though that he opted out last season. But it's going to be a good camp battle between those two for sure.
I mean, I'll say this. The only thing I'll say with Rock is I will say, is it not the ideal situation for him to show up and for Marvell to show up? Because Xavier's probably leaving after this year. It's kind of like what we talk about with receivers all the time, is ideally you want Paris to blow up and you want Pittman to continue because those are your 2 studs. Those are your 2 starters going forward. Because I've kind of been on record too. And Zach differs slightly with this on depending on how he plays this year. I think this could be T.Y.'s last year. I don't know. I mean, if he does come back, it could be another 1-year deal. I mean, obviously he's turned down big money to come back already. But I mean, I'll say that about with Rock is ideally you want him to do well. For those out there, Zach doesn't want him to suck. He just thinks he will.
Exactly. That's a great point, Stephen. Like, I want him to prove me wrong. I want at the end of this season, I want us to say, you know what? Rock Ya-Sin made me eat every single one of my words this year, and he turned out to be a very, very good, solid, competitive number 2 cornerback in the NFL.
That'd be great.
I'm going on record, Zach. I'm going on record, man. Okay, you ready?
Right now,
I'm going on record. if Rock Yassin turns into a viable starting corner for the Colts, I'm not gonna say Pro Bowl. I'm not gonna put these lofty things, but if he turns into a viable starter, I'm buying you a Rock jersey and sending it to you.
Oh my gosh, man!
It's gonna come FedEx.
Hey, I hope I'm right. I love the Rock.
26.
Go Rock.
I will wear 26 proudly if that man comes out and balls out this year. And Vinny alluded to that interception that he had against the Packers last year, which was a really good interception. But I'll say this, even the sun shines on a dog's ass twice a day.
There it was.
Every once in a while, things just come through for you. But hey,
we all have our players we just unnaturally like.
We're not here to beat up on Rock. I'm a Colts fan, and honest to God, I'm a Rock Yassin fan. It's been difficult to watch him the last 2 years. I'll just say that. Call it growing pains, call it whatever you want to call it. It's been difficult to watch them. But all in all, this is a very, very exciting team this year. I think we've gotten better. I think every year, one thing that I like for Ballard, one thing that I wanted to mention on this podcast, one thing that he's taken from, the previous year's Super Bowl winning teams is he's looked at those models and how those models translated into winners. And he literally took one of those. He literally took DeForest Buckner from one team because he was that impactful in a Super Bowl. And then this year, he just saw how important it was to have that continuous, constant, pressure on those star elite quarterbacks. Because what happens is it just wears those quarterbacks. I don't care who you are. It just mentally wears them down over a long 4-quarter game. Those guys just keep coming and keep coming and keep coming. So I'm hopeful that we'll find some sense of a good 2, 3, 4-man rotation there on the outside and just continue to kind of bring that pressure, even if Quiddy's not getting to them and bringing them down, just constantly hands in the face, batting them back, pushing them out of the pocket. And we'll see what happens.
So speaking of that, Vinny, before we get you out, I got one more question for you too. Because I want to go around with this too, is who are you most excited to see this year? Let's take Carson out. Everyone's super excited to see Carson, see what he looks like. What player are you most excited to see when the games roll around in the fall?
You want one from defense and one from offense?
Oh yeah, go ahead, man. You can go one from
let's
each.
Do it up. All right, so I'll start with the defense. I really want to see how Kwity Paye rolls out because we spent such high draft capital on Kwity Paye and he has such potential. And I want to see him be the edge DeForest Buckner type. I want to see him get in the backfield, create that pressure, because I think in a lot of games, that's what we're lacking the most is that backfield pressure. I feel like a lot of quarterbacks have a lot of time to throw with us and guys find their way open, and playing that zone defense and then finding those pockets just to sit in, having that backfield, having our guys get into the backfield off the front rush is the most important thing, and not having our linebackers have to come up and get sacks and blitz off the edge, and which I still think is fine too, but I think we're not as we need to be a little bit more unpredictable in that sense. And I think we need more generation from the defensive line. And I hope Kwity Paye is that guy for sure. So that would be my guy on defense.
Offense.
Okay. You want me to keep going and then we'll run it? Or?
Yeah, go. No, go ahead, man. Give me your offense too.
Okay, offensive guy, I'd have to say Paris Campbell. I think for sure he's a game changer. And if he ends up staying healthy this year, I think he can be a big offensive weapon for us. What he does he's a little bit more of a gadget guy. And what he does for our team is open up defenses, and he can blow the top off corners. So they really need to respect that, or they really need to respect his speed and his route running because he has great route running. But if he can stay healthy, I think he's a great number 2 wide receiver to fill into that role when T.Y. Hilton leaves and Michael Pittman eventually becomes that number 1, because I don't know if he's there right this instant, but once he becomes that number 1 wide receiver, if Campbell can stay healthy, it's a big year for him as well, he's going to really turn it up a notch for us. And that's what we're lacking too. We're missing that speed, that side-to-side speed, that inside slot guy that can take defenses, take the top off defenses, get inside and yards after the catch.
I could not agree more. Zach, do you want to give one? I mean, I know me and you have kind of done like breakout players a little bit. You got
Yeah.
anybody different from where we've talked? I mean, I agree a lot with
I'll
Vinny.
just say, I won't say breakout, but I'll say the person that I'm most excited about on this offense. And for all that Jonathan Taylor did so good last year, I think he takes the next step. Like, I think he's like the running back this year. Like you see so many really good young running backs year 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. That's kind of their heyday, right? Early on in their career, just take off. I'm excited because I believe he is going to find a way to actually utilize catching the football out of the backfield this year. I think he's worked extremely hard on it. He's worked extremely hard on pass blocking, so he can be out there on those passing downs. I'm most excited to see Taylor on offense. Now on defense, I'm most excited probably to just get a chance and see Okereke get a full-time role, because I think the dude's actually future Hall of Famer, by the way. You know, I mean, we can't dismiss that, but you know, the guy is really talented. He's got great length. He's a freak in his own right. Everybody talks about Darius Leonard, who why wouldn't you talk about the maniac? But I mean, this guy's freakish as well. If you look at his measurements, his athletic ability, his ability to cover, and he has such long arms. You know, I think a lot of times quarterbacks think they can fit the ball over the top of his arms, and he always kind of has a way of kind of tipping that ball or knocking that ball down. And he's a little more sideline to sideline than I first anticipated him coming out of college. So I'm really excited to see what Okereke can do on the defensive side. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I mean, I'm super similar to Vinny with. I mean, I've obviously beat that Paris Campbell drum. I mean, we did a poll, dude. I don't know if you saw it. So I did a poll on who I thought who are the players, the breakout, who you're going to watch catch fire, and I put Paris Campbell and Bobby Okereke on there. And Paris Campbell's blew up. I mean, like 60 something, almost 70%. I mean, everyone's looking at him. I mean, and I am too. I mean, I went on record a few weeks ago that I think he's going to have 1,000 yards. I'm going to get a T-shirt made. I talked about it again today at my office. It says, you know, Paris Campbell, comeback player of the year. And on the back, it's going to say hashtag no wide receiver reverses. That's kind of where I sit. And then, so Zach, you stole my one on the defense, which is Bobby Okereke. But another one to kind of pivot is I'm excited to see Kamoko. I am. There's that lasting taste in your mouth from that play against Buffalo. But then you just you kind of have to wipe your mind of that. It's a horrible play. And you try to remember that he wasn't fully healthy. He's still not really fully healthy yet. But he's got so much talent. And I would love to see him kind of flourish, because I think he's in a really similar boat as Rock, as Paris, that this is kind of show up and show out or just get out at this point during the year. So, I mean, those are who I'm excited about. So, Vinny, before we let you go, man, I want to give you kind of a platform here. I know, you know, because me and you talk, that you have some really, and we've broke the news on here many times. Vinny has his own podcast. I'm going to let him talk about it. Tell the listeners where they can find you, where they can follow you, where they can hopefully listen to your podcast.
Yeah, for sure. So I'll start off by saying I will get 1% better every day when it comes to the podcast world. And the guy that actually started this off for me to get me inspired was Steven himself. So I do owe you a lot of credit for that. You did get me inspired to get off and start a podcast on my own. It's unfortunately not a Colts podcast, but it's a fantasy football podcast. The name of it is Fantasy Football Revamped. And the reason why we picked Fantasy Football Revamped is we want to revamp the fantasy football community. So I look at it like a community, and there's a lot of stuff out there, and like a lot of podcasts out there, they talk and it just seems like they just scratch the surface of things. So this podcast is going to get a little deeper into stats and information on breakout players you want to avoid, sells, trades, etc. And we just want to get down and dirty with it. So if you want to follow us at Fantasy Football Revamped, it's at Fantasy Football Revamped on our Twitter feed. And our first episode will be releasing on July 1st. And it's going to be just talking about a little bit about strategies when it comes to dynasty and fantasy football and in the whole.
Nice. And how can they find you? What's the best way to find you, man?
So you can follow my Twitter feed at Vinny Borelli on Twitter. And I haven't really set up anything else when it comes to social media platforms, but I will eventually. And that news will be released along with the episodes.
Awesome, man. We were so excited. Well, I can tell you, I was so excited to have you on, man. I was so excited. We talked over the weekend when me and Zach were talking. We're like, we're gonna bring somebody on. I was like, dude, I'm calling Vinny. Like, I'm getting Vinny. And Zach was like, do it. So we're excited, man. I'm excited to hear it when it drops. You most definitely have 2 subscribers in us. Y'all, if you're listening, make sure that you subscribe to it as soon as he drops it. It's going to be great. We're really excited. Vinny, man, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll give you a shout later, man.
Yeah, man. Thank you very much for having me on, guys.
Thanks, Vinny.
And have a good day. See you guys.
See ya. So, what an amazing man. I was so excited to have him on. I don't know if you guys can tell. Like, I get excited.
How cool was that? You know what I mean? Like from day one, literally, not even, we're not even just saying that. Like literally, he's day one. He supports the show. And then like for him to be able to kind of hop on this podcast, use his voice. And that's what we've always kind of said from the beginning, right? We want to let the Colts community use their voice. And we had an opportunity, a platform to hop on. And, kudos to you, man. I said, we got to get a fan on here. That worked out really well the last time. And you said, I have no doubt who I'm asking. I'm asking Vinny, And I supported that 100%. I think that was so cool. And, fantasy football is also a passion of mine. I don't really do a fantasy football podcast because I'm all Colts. But hey, that's going to be cool, man. I mean, I'm sure we're going to have a fantasy football themed podcast at one point. Just be kind of a lighthearted, fun thing to do. And then we could really, maybe get him back on the show at some point. So,
I mean, and huge shout out to him. I mean, obviously, like you said, when I say, and if you've listened to this long enough and you backtrack to the previous podcast that this morphed from, and when we decided to kind of revamp it, and it's no horsing around, and we have a great time horse playing and things like that, when you start out podcasting, and Zach, this, you just want, like you said it last week, give me one person I know is listening, and I know it's always a comfort, and that's why I was so determined I wanted Vinny on. Because from day one, from the moment I dropped my very first podcast, I had one, and it's always been Vinny. And so, like he said too, I mean, I'm never, he said it, and Mason and Ian, I'm never going to broadcast out podcasters that I try to help out. But I mean, Vinny's someone that he's talked probably for the last 4 months about doing a podcast, and I've tried to encourage and put it out there. And I mean, helped him come up with an idea and things like that. And I mean, I'm really excited. For those who don't know, Vinny was slightly nervous. He's never spoken outside of his podcast, and he sounded great, man. Like, he sounded great. He sounded good. You get that warm up. So, I mean, I was really excited to get him on. So we're going to answer a couple of social media questions. Okay. And as always, social media sessions is powered by One Call Technology. One Call Technology is a leading telecommunications provider. It is a family-owned business with over 100 years of experience in their field in telecommunications. What is telecommunications? It's phone systems, it's carrier services like Comcast, Charter, Spectrum, whatever it is that you have, or AT&T. They can help you look at your bill. They look at it for free. It's no cost. They make sure you're getting the best service for the best price. If you're not sure if you are, go to onecalltech.com, hit a contact us. It'll come to me, so you get to talk to me. So we're only going to touch on a few, and me and you have talked about this. We had the amazing show a few weeks ago where we covered probably like 20 to 25 questions. And, we put the ask out a lot of times, and sometimes we don't, and you guys still send them in, but we want to cover we always want to cover at least 2 or 3. It's a big portion of our show. We love the interaction. That's how we get to where we're at right now, which is, Vinny coming on, or Ian, or Mason. And, we're going to continue to do that during this period. We're going to continue to look for people that we want to bring on, and get really creative and really fun and have that fan interaction. And this is how we do it. So the first question that came in, man, it actually came to me today, and he put a little nugget on the end. I was like, oh yeah, we're answering that one. So it's from Scotty, a Colt guy. And Scotty is fantastic. He's he submitted a lot of questions. So his question was, hey fellas, in the worst case scenario, that none of the backup left tackles show they are capable enough to handle the job in preseason. Could we still see Nelson slide to left tackle until Fisher gets healthy? Thanks in advance. Love the pod. The little part I want to drop that he said was he wanted us to know he totally asked Kevin Bowen this as well.
Awesome.
So I was like, man, we're in the same boat. That's what I'm talking about.
Heck yeah. I mean, and I think everybody listening to this pod's well aware of, you know, that's the one common thread that we have is that Kevin Bowens, who we got started listening to in the podcast, he's one of our favorite people. But to answer the question, get back on track. No, I don't think he plays left tackle. I think he had an opportunity. He sounds like he would have done that if asked to do it by the team. But he's best served at left guard. And I think it's on the coaching staff. I think it's on Strasser to figure out and scheme up whatever he has to do to add that protection there on that left side. I don't think that, in my opinion, I'm interested to see what you think. I don't think Tevy starts week 1. I think he gets beat out in training camp, honestly. I really do. I think a guy like, you know, Will Holden can come out and have a better training camp, and then also gives Chris Ballard an opportunity to actually look at a young prospect. You know what you have in Tevy. Tevy's there if things don't kind of go great, and he's kind of a bridge guy, a veteran bridge guy. I don't think he's a super talented left tackle, in my personal opinion. He struggled with really athletic guys, especially. So we'll see. But I don't think Quentin Nelson's going to slide at left tackle. I think they're going to, better or worse, they're going to keep Quentin at left guard, and he'll continue his Hall of Fame career. And I think this is a possibility. I think that Nelson might be one of the faces on the Madden cover this year, by the way.
So, man, you drop stuff like that at the end before I get a chance to answer. I saw something about that. I've heard 2 players.
Yeah, 2 players.
Okay, so I'm a little wary. I hate the Madden curse, but who knows? But that would be amazing to have your O lineman get on there. So, as far as the question, like you were saying, I have said from the beginning, one, I don't like it at all. I've not been a fan of the idea of moving him over, because in my mind, you have a future Hall of Fame left guard, right? And he's amazing. And if you take him out and you move him over to tackle, who's to say he's still that Hall of Fame caliber? And you're having to replace a Hall of Fame caliber left guard. So you make it weaker across the board. I'm not a proponent of like, hey, let's stick the best 4 people out there and see where they fit, or the best 5 people and see where they fit. Stay there, stay where you're at. He's going to get, and people who say, well, he would want to make the move because of the money. Dude's going to make a crap ton of money anyway. It doesn't really matter if he's left tackle or left guard at this point. I don't think he moves. I don't think they do it, especially if no one shows up in the preseason. It's awfully late. I'm not saying he can't. I think if anybody could, it would be Big Q. But I think that's asking a lot, and that's asking a lot of whoever you're sliding in there. And I know we've talked about Pinter, but we've talked about him more on the other side as Glowinski possibly leaving after this year. But as far as what you said, I could be on board with that, man. I'm a much bigger, and I think Ballard has shown this. He wants to look at young talent. Get your young players out there. That was the big rumor with the DNs. With the edge rushers, why he didn't pursue any of them was he was kind of sort of maybe forcing their hand and saying, I want to see my young guys play. I want to see Banagu. I want to see Kamoko. I'm going to get you some other players, but I want to see them play. I don't want to see them being out snapped by a 30. How old is Houston? 34, 33, somewhere around there.
Maybe going to turn 32 this
32.
Yeah,
so I don't want to see my early 20s DN that I've invested draft capital in getting out snapped by a player who may be on a 1-year deal. So, I'm with you. Tevy scares the crap out of me anyway. Talking to George last week, it sounds kind of interesting. I know you kind of sit, someone added me and they went even more. So, I know you kind of sit with, I think, 4 games? You think maybe the first 4, 2 to 4? Is what Fisher's going to miss. Someone totally added me and said they think that he's day 1 starter. That they think this surgery, this experimental Achilles surgery, is, touched by God, and he's gonna start. I would love it, but I want him healthy. I want him healthy. The Achilles is a really scary thing. That's a career ender if you don't handle it right. So, I mean, I'm with you. So this is not a social media question, but you know what it is? It's a Stephen Burton 86 question. So, and then we're gonna go to the next one that I've got is, so I'm re-listening to our episode from last week with George, and I'm listening and I'm trying to pick up little things because the stuff he had was fantastic. And I kept coming back to how he spoke of Michael Strawn. And everyone who listens knows I'm really excited about Michael Strawn. We had kind of labeled him as a guy that we think they could try to sneak onto the practice squad. Did your mind change after hearing George last week? Do you think there's a possibility he comes in as like the fifth receiver?
No, I really don't at this point. Every year, I know that the wide receiver competition every year, that's one position we always kind of get hyped up on, during preseason especially. I think he has a great frame. I think he has really nice potential, but I don't see him actually making this roster this year unless injuries come into play. I think that there's a lot of talent in that room. I think that our top four are solidified. We've already kind of discussed that on several podcasts.
Mm-hmm.
Fifth or sixth option, I think we actually are going to roll with 5 wide receivers this year. Who knows? I mean, Ashton Dulin has an amazing, ability to play special teams, so I think that kind of, if you're fighting for a job, that sure the hell helps you win a job, on that last spot, kind of maybe making that final, that 53rd spot on the team. But I envision him as a practice squad player this year.
Mm-hmm.
That's my sense.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's changed not because of him. Like I said with George, I got to talk with him very briefly. Dude is like amazingly nice. I will go out on a limb and say Kylan Grayson is probably the most sociable rookie and the most like just vibrant person I think I've ever spoken with, that you're like, man, he's just fun. But I think it's the number. It's a numbers game more than anything with the wide receivers. I mean, for those who listen, y'all know me and Zach have struggled for weeks, probably a month now, to figure out who's number 4, who's number 5. Will there be a number 6? Because we've got players that we're really interested in to see where they come. Okay, so next question comes from Daniel Sondefeld, and he asks, why do fans always question the Colts and not let the people in the organization do their darn jobs? And it's a good question because I feel like it's come up way more often lately.
Well, I think, to be fair, I mean, the biggest part about being a fan is having the ability to kind of voice your opinion, right? I mean, I think the biggest thing that I think some people get twisted is just because I don't agree with one or two things that, that the Colts organization are doing does not mean I'm a hater of the Colts. Does not mean I hate the totality of what Chris Ballard does. I can disagree with one or two things and still in my mind think he's a damn good general manager, which I do. Yeah. But if I'm going to sit here and look and evaluate, the way that this coaching staff or this team or this, general management, Ed Dodds, whoever you want to kind of critique, if I'm going to agree with every single solitary thing that they do, then I'm not being honest with myself, right? Like I'm just being, at that point, I'm just being a quote unquote fanboy, which is fine. We love fans. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's totally okay to disagree with some things. And that's what makes you being a fan. I'm a season ticket holder. I always have kind of told my friends and people in my circle, I pay to have a voice, you know what I mean? And it doesn't matter. They're going to do what they think, at the end of the day, they're going to do what they think right. And I support them. But we really can all together kind of have a few healthy disagreements and healthy discussions. Mm-hmm. That's why Colts podcast exists, right? Like to discuss, why did this happen? Why did this not happen? That's the very essence of a Colts podcast. So, yeah, I mean, I know that was a little bit long-winded, and I've known Daniel for a long time. He's always got great questions. And, Yeah, I mean, I think it's perfectly okay to not agree with something, but still support your team.
Yeah, I mean, let's like you said, let's not get it twisted around. Fan is short for fanatic. There's a reason. I mean, there's a reason that you go to the games. There's a reason why we spend money on the merchandise and that we think that we have a say a lot of times. And we just have kind of a larger platform, obviously, than other people do. But I think it's a microcosm. What you said is 100% a microcosm of our society in general, is that it is, if I disagree with you, I hate you, or I hate everything. You can't, it doesn't seem to be, especially with fans, you cannot seem to have the choice of, I don't agree with everything, and yeah, I mean, like, I'd be the first to tell you the off season, for those who listen, know that there was a lot of disgruntled on free agency, on why the heck aren't we signing players? Why aren't we signing DNs? There's all these edge rushers. Why aren't we doing anything? And there was a lot of frustration. And then you vent that, you have that feeling. It's okay to think that there's an issue and that you disagree. And then for me, and I think Zach, you're the same way. I sit back and realize, okay, Ballard gets paid millions of dollars to do this. He's pretty darn good. He's got a proven track record. He knows more than I do. He, like we joked, like, George was closer to the situation. He knows more than we do too. So it's like, I tend to lean to the people who know and have access to more information than me. But it is interesting. And I think, to kind of like to turn it back around on what he said, is why are people that way? Well, when you're not winning Super Bowls and you're struggling to get into the playoffs like the Colts had over the last, half a dozen years, people are going to say more. People are going to question more. Heaven forbid had Ballard not made the playoffs this past year. If the Colts hadn't, it would have been a much different conversation, because then you're looking at one playoff appearance in 4 years 4 years. So, I mean, it's a much different conversation at that point. But when you're not, I want to have a fan base that supports them, but at the same time, I want pressure. Iron sharpens iron. Feel accountable. Feel like you've got to get this team better. Feel like you've got to get this team rocking and rolling. And to your point that you said earlier, I think is a great point, which is, he's looked at the Super Bowl winner the last 2 years and said, okay, that's what I need. I'm going to go get that. And just so happens to be in his wheelhouse, where he signs and he drafts people who are really freaking good at those positions. So, great question. Awesome question. Obviously, we love our social media sessions. You guys know how to get to us with them. It's at Stephen Burton 86, at Colts Nation 365, at No Horsing. Go and find any of them that you want. Send a question, send it at any point in time. DM, at whatever you want. We're going to tag it. We're going to drop it in the queue. We're going to make sure we try to get to it. I mean, we just like interacting. Like, that's the biggest key. We just like interacting with you guys. And it's important to note, okay? So we've talked about this, is that we have achieved our goal on followers now. Okay. We're darn near at 1,000 on the No Horsing page. We need the YouTube subscribers. We're at about 75. The giveaway is unlocked. You get kind of that sweet merch that Zach is wearing. You can pick something. We're not even sure. We've not even talked about what we're going to give away. We could give away several things. Who knows? But we need the subscribers on YouTube. We need to hit that 100. That's what's going to unlock it. So go into our link tree. If you're following, great. If you're subscribed, great. If you've not subscribed on YouTube, just hit the link and hit it. Just hit it and go. And, we got some really cool stuff kind of buzzing around with the YouTube coming up. Kind of little tweaks, trying to, make the video more appealing, a little bit more fun for you guys to watch. Really lucky to have some people in the Colts content community who are helping us out with that, just because they want to help out. Kind of blows my mind. So let's see. I mean, obviously, Zach, what do we got, man? We got any announcements? We got anything fun? We got anything we want to leave the people with?
I think, the main thing, the thing I'm most excited about is, Stephen, is that just every single week we gain, a new cool follower, or, we see those numbers, slowly climb. You know, we talked about that. You know, we don't need to be like an overnight thing here. We want to be organic. We want to grow. We want to get to know the community on a personal basis. And if you grow a little bit slower, you get to have interaction and meet those people and actually know who they are, you know, and get to kind of communicate with them a little bit better. And they don't get lost in the shuffle. So I'm just thankful for, you know, like you said, 75 subscribers on YouTube. A lot of people think, well, that's just 75, but that's 75 that we didn't have, you know, this time 2 months ago, which is amazing. That shows me that our voice is being heard and we're starting to be supported by the Colts community, which is a very big deal. You know, we really want to get to 100. That would just be an amazing thing. So like you said, like, you know, share, subscribe. The main thing is just, you know, getting our name out there, throwing us out there. And we've always said this, I say this every podcast, and I mean it from the bottom of my heart. Even if you disagree with Stephen and I, let us know. That's, you know, if it's a great enough question and you have a great point and say, hey, you know, we talk about it. We're like, you know what, you know, he or she was right. We'll bring you on the podcast. We'll give you your just due. We won't just throw you under the bus and be like, whatever, this guy doesn't know what he's talking about. We'll bring you on here. We will literally promote the thoughts and the opinions and your viewpoint. If you have an amazing topic or amazing way of looking at things, we support it all, man. So like I said, we're just so super thankful. We're guys, you know, I say it every week, you know, we're for the fans, by the fans. That's who we are. And we're just grateful to be doing this podcast, and especially during this off season where I know that it's not the most prevalent thing in the world, right? Like football's not, you know, on everybody's ticker right now on Sports Center and everything. But this just kind of shows our level of love for the Colts football game, man. When nobody else is talking about it, well, guess what? You know, Stephen and Zach are, you know, every Monday night we're out there talking about football because this is our passion. This is what we love to do, man. We're not doing this because this is work. This is fun. This is our leisure. This is what we love to do. So thank you. Big shout out. I know I've shouted him out before, but you know, Wyatt Law, man, he's a cool dude. He's been interacting with me a lot, as you know, especially on YouTube, DMing me. And told him I've got him something special coming. We'll get him a t-shirt or something, some merch sent out to it. He gave me his address. I'm grateful for guys like that. You know, you got Vinny, and you know, Wyatt's a really cool dude, and I've gotten to kind of talk to him a little bit more. I look forward to getting to know him even better. So just thanks again, guys.
Yeah, I mean, I can't reiterate it enough. I mean, I think Zach said it best. It's humbling. It is. I mean, we're just two, like we say in the intro, we're just two dudes talking Colts, and like you said too, we know it's not the most prevalent thing. I mean, we're here every Monday. You know, rain, shine, sick. You know, I think even last week y'all could probably tell, like, my head stopped up. I don't sound normal. I've had listeners reach out to me and be like, "You didn't sound right." You know, so I mean, that's cool too, because that means you guys are listening. But I mean, we appreciate it so much. And I think that's something that's really important to point out is we appreciate you guys so much that during this offseason, we're having y'all on. Like, we're trying our best to kind of pick and choose and get some fans. And I mean, I've not told Zach, like, I've kind of got a few more that it's like, I'd love to have them on, you know, who have been huge supports. Heidi's one, you know, Heidi listens. She's very nervous. She has tried to avoid it, but it's going to come, Heidi. And, you know, so, I mean, we've got these really loyal fans that we've built up, and we love you guys for it. We really, really do. It's a humbling thing. We're excited. And obviously, I mean, like anybody else, we're excited for the season to start, to have a little bit more to talk with you guys about, you know, recaps and looking ahead. And we're going to have a little bit more meat on the bone. But right now, you know, let's just build. Like Zach says all the time, we're building. You guys are getting to know us. We're getting to know what you guys like. And I mean, like we said in the beginning, rate, review, subscribe, share, go where it's at, follow, do whatever you need to do. Make sure you're looking at all the platforms. It's across everything. I mean, I got nothing else, man. And you know how I ended every time. I love you. Zach, love you. We're out.